everyone, this is Vandal. If you're new to my channel, welcome! I play video games while I tell you a true crime story. This is a story about Aileen Wuornos and the murder she committed. Listener discretion is advised. Aileen was an American serial killer. While she was engaging in street prostitution along highways in Florida, she robbed, shot, and killed 7 of her male clients. Aileen was born on February 29, 1956 in Rochester, Michigan. Aileen never knew her father. Her parents, Aileen Wuornos and Leo Pittman, were separated before she was born. Her father was sentenced to life in prison at this time for kidnapping and sexually assaulting a 7-year-old girl. Her father had schizophrenia. He died by suicide in 1969. When Diane left Leo, she had Aileen and her brother Keith go live with their grandparents. They adopted the kids in March of 1960. At the age of 11, Aileen started to exchange sexual favors for things like food, cigarettes, and drugs. It has been said Aileen's grandfather beat and sexually assaulted her around this time. She was also engaging in sexual activities with her brother. When she was 14 in 1970, she was raped by a friend of her grandfather who got her pregnant. Aileen had a boy in 1971, and she put him up for adoption. After this, she left school. Her grandmother passed away from liver failure as her grandparents were both alcoholics. Her grandfather kicked her out of the house. She started prostituting to support herself. She was living in the woods near her grandparents' house. She was arrested in 1974 at the age of 18 for driving under the influence and firing a pistol from her car. She also failed to show up for court, so she was charged for that too. In 1976, she hitchhiked to Florida. She met and married 69-year-old Louis Gratz Fell. He was the president of a yacht club, but her being married did not stop her from getting into bar fights. She went to prison for a while for inflicting bodily harm. She even assaulted her own husband with his cane only a few weeks after they got married. He even got a restraining order against her. So she moved back to Michigan, and in July of 1976, she was back in jail for assault when she threw a pool ball at a bartender. Her brother Keith passed away from esophageal cancer, and the money from his life insurance she used to pay off her DWI fines and went and bought herself a new car, which she wrecked soon after. In 1978, she attempted to take her own life by shooting herself in the abdomen. She attempted to take her own life about 6 times now, starting from the age of 14. On May 20th of 1981, she was arrested for stealing from a convenience store while she was armed. She stole a total of $35 and a few cigarettes. She was sent to prison in 1982, and she was paroled in June of 1983. She was arrested in May of 1984 for attempting to cash forged checks at a bank. In 1985, she stole a revolver and ammo. And a few months later, in January of '86, she attempted a carjacking and resisted arrest in Miami. A client of hers accused her of attempting to rob him during one of her sessions. She denied it, but inside the car they found the revolver and ammo. Aileen was now 30 years old, and she met Tyria Moore at a gay bar called Zodiac. She said she fell immediately in love with her. Aileen shot several men with the .22 revolver between 1989 and 1990 while she was a sex worker. She killed and robbed all 7 of them. She claimed each of these men attempted to or sexually assaulted her, and she claimed she killed them in self-defense. Aileen would sometimes undress the men and sell some of their belongings. Richard Mallory was 51 years old when he died. Aileen claimed he beat her and sexually assaulted her. He was her first victim. She dumped his body miles from the wooden area, and she shot him twice in the lungs, but a total of 5 times. David Andrew Spears was 47 years old when he went missing in 1990. They found his body unclothed on the side of the highway. He was also shot 5 or 6 times in the torso. Charles Carskadden was murdered on May 31st of 1990. He was 40 years old. He was found June 6th. He was shot 9 times with the same weapon as the other 2 men, and his body was wrapped up in a blanket and had begun decomposing. Aileen was seen driving his car, and she pawned his gun. Peter Seams was murdered at the age of 65. In July of 1990, they found his car abandoned with Aileen's handprint inside. However, his body was never found. On July 31st, 1990, Troy Burris was reported missing. He was 50 years old. His body was later discovered in a forest. He had signs of being struck twice. Charles Humphreys was shot September 11th, 1990. His body was found. He was shot in the stomach and head about 7 times. His car was found a little later. Walter Antonio was found almost completely naked. He had 4 gunshot wounds on his back and his head. After Aileen was arrested, the doctors believed that her childhood and her working as a sex worker could have severely impacted her behavior. She never had that mother-daughter bond. They found that she had borderline and antisocial personality disorders. After Aileen and Moore were spotted abandoning Seam's car after a car accident, police found Moore first, and in exchange for immunity, she agreed she would get Aileen to confess. Aileen was arrested January 9th of 1991. On January 16th, Aileen confessed to the murders. She said all the men attempted to assault her, and she only killed them in self-defense. She was convicted of the murder of Mallory on January 27th, 1992. At the time of the sentencing, her lawyers brought in a psychiatrist who claimed Aileen was mentally ill and had 2 personality disorders. However, she was found guilty and was sentenced to the death penalty. Her lawyers had found Mallory was arrested before for attempted rape. However, the judge would not allow these records into court. March 31st, 1992, Wuornos entered a no-contest plea to the shooting of Wuoros, Humphrey, and Spears. Aileen continued to claim the men attempted to sexually assault her, but then she changed her story, claiming it was just robbery. But then she killed them so there wouldn't be any witnesses. On May 15th of 1992, she was given 3 more death penalties. She admitted to killing the rest of the men, but she was only tried for Carskandon and Antonio. She got 2 more death sentences for these. The only one she wasn't convicted for was Seams, only because they couldn't find his body. She spent her 12 years on death row in Florida Broward Correctional Institution. Then she was transferred to Florida State Prison, where she would be executed. Her final written words were, "I killed those men, robbed them as cold as ice, and I'd do it again too. There's no chance in keeping me alive or anything because I'd kill again. I have hate crawling through my system. I'm so sick of hearing this 'she's crazy' stuff. I've been evaluated so many times. I'm competent, sane, and I'm trying to tell the truth. I'm the one who seriously hates human life and would kill again." On October 9th of 2002, she died by lethal injection at 9:47 a.m. She declined her final meal and just had a cup of coffee instead. In 2003, they made a movie about her called Monster with Charlize Theron. Her traumatic upbringing, including her physical and sexual abuse, have been partially linked to the development of her borderline personality disorder. Again, this is Vandal. Thank you so much for listening. If you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, please do. I would really appreciate it, and see you guys next time.